Hi guys, good afternoon. It looks like we are starting. This is our first event, so I expect some, if not glitches, then at least, some kind of technical stepping on the way. So to those of you who don't know me or don't know us, we are Óbuda Univenture Capital, a funding source here in Budapest, and we have a mission that besides funding, we try to bring the Budapest ecosystem as much international air and as much international news as possible. And as such, this is our first attempt, the first episode that we are now putting on in this LinkedIn Live series. And basically our idea is that we would like to kind of initiate little connections around the world. So every month we are going to bring you these news. And it's my pleasure that at the very first episode, I could convince my friend Martin from Techstars to join us and share his wisdom and share his knowledge with all of you guys. And I wouldn't want to introduce you, Martin. I think that you do a much better job at that. So why don't you share with us your experience and what you are doing right now, if I'm correct, in Turin, Italy. Over to you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Imre. First of all, congratulations for launching this new initiative. It's great, and especially very honored to be the first guest here. So excited to see who is coming after me, and yeah, looking forward to this hour discussion on venture capital, startups, and everything. A few words about myself. I'm Martin Olczyk, managing director at Techstars since 2018. I'm running Techstars here in beautiful Torino since 2019. I've set it up here as the first program for Techstars in Italy. Before that, I was running Techstars in Amsterdam and Berlin, Germany. Originally, and this is where our journey basically connects. I'm from Poland, but born in Poland, raised up in Germany, still with a very close heart to emerging markets. I did investment banking in the beginning of my career, especially technology across the world, helping startups, fundraising, IPOs, mergers and acquisitions. Then turned entrepreneur, started and built 4 companies, failed with 1, bootstrap 2, got 2 companies through venture capital, and sold 1 company, so across very different industries. Was a pretty active angel investor. After the journey, made roughly 20 angel investments across the globe, and yeah, since 2018, I'm investing fully with Techstars. So I make 12 investments in early stage startups, bring them over, in my case now here to Turin for a duration of 3 months, and also invested already in a bunch of Hungarian companies, 3 in total. We also share one investment basically from my last year batch. And now we are here again in Turin for 3 weeks. Our program is ongoing. We are in the 6th year. We had a pretty good run here in Torino, streaming from OGR, which is a beautiful location where startups meet corporates and basically offer working spaces. We are working here in Turin with 3 great corporations who are helping us since day one. It's Italy's largest bank in São Paulo, with the Innovation Center, 2 foundations, Compagnia di São Paulo, Fondazione CRT. And yeah, since launch in 2019, we accelerated now more than 60 companies, close to 70. Those had a pretty successful run despite COVID, all these challenges in the past couple of years, raising now close to 130 million euros in follow-on funding, growing, thriving, bunch of companies that are doing really well. Some companies are on track to do really well, a few failed. But yeah, our mission is to basically help entrepreneurs succeed across the globe, and portfolio here is very, very international, from the US to basically Vietnam. We have a very mixed, diverse setup of companies here. And yeah, we are now calling the program Techstars Transformative World Torino. We started here with smart mobility, moved then to cities of the future, and expanded the vertical to a very broad one, basically tapping into very diverse industries. That's in a nutshell about me.
Wow, in a nutshell, and obviously you mentioned a couple of metrics and numbers, and one that really strikes me is the $130 million that you have, or euros that you have raised for these companies. And it's especially interesting from a city like Torino, like Turin, which is not among the biggest ecosystems, right? So it must have been challenging. Did you do it locally? What proportion was local fundraising, and how much did you use your international network in fundraising?
It's very mixed. So the majority of our companies came from abroad. So we have probably like 60 to 70% of companies who are international from the US, UK, Germany, Ukraine, Hungary, Poland, Vietnam, Israel, Portugal, and the rest is from Italy. So as you correctly said, it's been a pretty immature market when we launched here in 2019. There wasn't much startup activity, so we are focusing more on bringing companies from abroad to Turin. Now we are at the level where we see a pretty healthy ecosystem, and we are also pretty happy and proud that since last year we balanced the class. So we always invest in companies with 50% international companies and 50% Italian companies. Funding wise, if I have to be honest, majority still came from abroad, but we're now seeing first VCs like putting money into our companies also here in Italy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now we as OUVC, we started about 18 months ago. We looked at 370 deals, and I have to be honest, I've been in this ecosystem for the past 15 years, and many of these ideas seem to be dated, seem to be like coming from 5, 7, or 8 years ago, and I'm looking for the reasons for that. But what I would be interested in your thoughts. What are those ideas that you deem kind of modern and current? What do you think are those ideas that are most fitting for your transformative world thesis?
Yeah, good question. Like perhaps I need to say like how we look at companies when we look at our pipeline, and when we scout companies for our accelerator. So it might be slightly different what you do for a VC. Basically, we have 6 criteria. I think it's pretty known already across the globe. So we look at team, market traction, idea. Right. Our mantra is that great, coachable, hungry, ambitious team with specific insights, potentially, and hopefully with specific insights in industry, has the chance to build something by being coached, working with us, working with our mentors, working at the playbook that we follow for building companies, by enabling them with unfair advantages like getting access to corporates, getting access to specialists, getting access to investors early on, and try to figure out something. So I'm not someone who is investing in big trends, to be honest. Personally, I like boring businesses. We invested in businesses that didn't seem really to be venture fundable. In the end, they became venture fundable, or sometimes not. So I'm rather not investing in trends or ideas that are hot today, but really like in people who want to build something and see a specific run. So I think all these ideas, as you said, they are outdated. They might come back. We have AI now. Company I've built more than 10 years ago. We also did AI. We didn't call it AI, or kinda yes, but it was a different type of AI. So now again, AI is hot. I think 2 years ago, everyone looked in crypto, into blockchain and topics like that. So I think we see coming and going in waves. But I'm especially interested in founders who have the specific insights that others might not have. If you want to build something pattern breaking, you need to have kind of advantage and know-how and see a problem from a perspective that others might not seen it yet. And it doesn't really matter like what kind of hot trend or buzzword they bring with. It's really about their knowledge and thinking, being obsessed about the problem they are trying to solve.
So you say that you have 6 criteria, which is actually 4, because it's team. So that's 1, market traction and idea. And idea is the last. And I'm happy to hear that, because that's what I always say, that idea is a dime a dozen. There are many ideas, and it's execution and the team, the strength of the team that matters the most. So in that sense, it's good. It doesn't matter what kind of ideas people have now; they can change it anytime, as long as the teams are good. What do you see in terms of if you compare Italian or world in general and Eastern European teams? Do you see any kind of characteristics that are typical for us that we should focus on, in your opinion, that should be improved?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like, our assumption is that talent is distributed equally all over the world, but the opportunity is not, right? So with programs like ours, we help companies from emerging ecosystems, emerging markets to tap into markets that are potentially developed already, or like bringing them access to capital. What you see as a difference in, let's say, mature markets is that you have a flywheel of knowledge. So people recycle know-how, they recycle capital. There are some success stories. They reinvest this capital as angels again. Successful founders do it, at least. They bring knowledge back to the ecosystem. I think the motivation is different. You have seen examples. This is very important when we speak about leading by example. That people made it. It's possible to build a company out of nowhere and starting from scratch. So I think we are now in a time, coming back to your question, that building companies has never been easier. Like, you can build an MVP in 2-3 days versus a couple of months or even years in the past. But distributing is really tough. So distributing means selling. Like, all categories are pretty defined and occupied. There are a lot of competitors in each market. And I think, when you see companies from very mature ecosystems, let's take the US as an example, selling and building something from scratch, being supported by people who have been there, have done that, have the knowledge, and are really willing to help others to lift it off. It's getting easier, right? Versus emerging ecosystems are not that big, first of all. They are early on. You don't have that many success stories. You don't have an ecosystem that is supporting you throughout your company building journey. You don't have that many angel investors. You don't have that many venture capital investors and founders who can provide input and feedback, open networks, and so on. So the pattern is definitely that it's probably like easier to start a company in a more mature ecosystem, and you have more founders who start a second, third company, sometimes the fifth company. It's not just about being successful, but also, like, especially when people fail. So if you don't have an educated ecosystem, failure in Germany 10-15 years ago, remember that also from stories from Poland or other countries, where people say, if you fail, you will never stand up again, and you shouldn't try it. It's difficult. 90% of startups fail. Such a tough career choice. Why don't you go and work for a bank for the next 30 years? Versus trying it, going, and where you have a supported ecosystem and people tell you, okay, you tried it for the second time, third time, it doesn't matter, go for the fifth time. You can still do it, right? So you have a totally different mindset, culture, and ambitions in those teams, versus in very young ecosystem, it's still very, often something that is a bit shady, like, oh, you're doing a startup, so wow, why do you do that? And, you're taking money from VCs, you have to pay it back. I have founders here who came to me, like, oh, should we take your 100,000 convertible note? What happens if we don't succeed? What happens with this 100,000? Do we have to pay it back? My family tells us it's not great to take money from people who you don't know very well. It's like, right, so kind of cracking
it's
up
very
the
realistic.
venture capitalist.
All right.
Now,
obviously, you guys do the selection from many, right? Hundreds of applicants, and you select 10, right? I mean, can you elaborate on those numbers, because they are pretty scary?
Yeah, it depends program by program, year by year. So this year we looked at 5,600 companies through the pipeline that were interesting for us. All over the globe, basically, we at the end had like 1,000 applications. For the program, we pick 12, so it's a bit more than 1% that we accept in the end. And this takes us usually like roughly 8 to 9 months to go and scout those founders. We do a lot of conversations, different checks, many interviews. We do it in person, we do it online. We go to conferences, we are hosting office hours, webinars. and of course screen a lot of applications online, and then decide who to pick and invite to the first interview, second interview, product demo, fourth interview, selection committee, and then we make a decision after like between 3 to 5 meetings.
Okay, so you pick 10 or 12 as you mentioned, and you are there sitting there alone as managing director. Maybe a couple of people help you, but you have to rely on this accumulated knowledge that you guys have. And how does that happen?
Yeah, I have a bunch of people in my team. Luckily, I'm not alone. We have a full-time team of 5 here. So I have investment analyst plus a program manager and 2 associates who are helping us with scouting and data crunching. And we, of course, also exchange with the other MDs. So we currently run roughly 40 programs across the globe, many in the US, London, Berlin, Tel Aviv, Tokyo, Sydney. And there is always one person like me who is leading the program. And we, of course, also exchange lead flow and talk about trends and what kind of deals fit into each program, because they're always different by theme or geography or topic. And yeah, luckily we have a team that is heavily supporting me in this scouting activities. I usually come in a bit later. I also do a bit of research always, but I usually spend more time interviewing and speaking with the founders than crunching data.
Last time I spoke with a Hungarian team out of Berlin, and they said that they only have 15 minutes because it's Madness Week. I was surprised that they were using that term quite seriously. So what's that madness about you guys?
Some call it magic, mental magic. Some call it mental madness. We also call it mental madness, and then it turns into mental magic. So this is basically the first month of the program. We have a period of 3 weeks where our teams meet roughly 100 mentors. So we have basically we finished a day today. So we had 12 mentors coming in. Someone flew in from the Netherlands. We had people here from Milan, from Torino, coming in for 20-minute sessions with the company. So they go through 12 meetings every day for roughly 10 days. So do the math, 12 teams, 10 days, roughly more than 1,200 meetings to refine their ideas, get feedback from very different people, different backgrounds, different perceptions, different perspectives on the company, and help them identifying a path for the upcoming weeks of the program. And this is the phase where people are, or one of the reasons why founders are coming to us, because you get a very concentrated feedback in a very short time, versus if you run and try to find those people outside of the program, it might be very challenging to bring 100, 150 people together, what we do in 3 weeks. And this is all about getting feedback, what they have today, find the direction. Perhaps they find clients, they find angel investors there, they find VCs there, right? Your own example, where we help founders to creating a plan for our so-called execution month, which is done in month 2. And we are a mentorship-driven program, so our mentors are supporting our founders not just in the first months, but exercise here is to find 3 to 5 so-called lead mentors who are then guiding the teams throughout the program, and very, very often beyond.
Now, I was just thinking, it seems obviously it is a very well-defined and very well-executed, structured program. How can people prepare for that? Where would you point them to if they want to learn about it? Not only kind of insider tricks, but if even without Techstars, if you want to prepare themselves for the world, what would be your advice? Where to turn to? What sources to look at?
I just see one of my founders is here. Hi, Slavomir, sitting in the other room.
Actually,
probably know each other.
Yeah, Slavo used to sit in our digital factory Accelerator in Budapest. Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
okay, great.
10 years
Didn't
ago.
know that. Small world. I'll talk to him later.
Yeah.
Look, I think honestly, all we do here, there is no secret sauce anymore. All the information is something you can find even on our website. We have an entrepreneur toolkit. You can go to our competitor website. There is a lot of education material. You can go to YouTube. You can find all the AI tools nowadays where you can just prompt stuff and you get an answer. I think what is very important is to find a rhythm and kind of streamline all this information, because it's a lot, right? So there are books where you can learn how to start off, depends where you are in terms of company building, highly recommended. A very old one, a classic one is Steve Blank, 4 Steps to Epiphany, where he speaks about customer discovery, company building, and how to move from step by step. Very, very practical book. Love it. We build a lot of content on that. But there are many other resources from 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, or 4 Hour Week, right? So I think there are massive amounts of tools. It really depends where you are. If you're early stage, you have incubators. Google it. Find Founder Institute. We have many accelerators. They are all public. They all publish educational tools. You can sign up to online sessions to learn stuff. Really a lot of data. So you can already spend 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to educate yourself before you choose and figure out what you do and how to proceed from there, potentially joining such a program like ours or any others.
Now, we know each other since 2018, and I remember when you decided to go to Turin and actually kickstart this program there. And we were looking at each other like Turin, that's a small ecosystem, even smaller than Budapest, and look what happened. I mean, it actually developed really significantly, as you mentioned, and it's a well-structured place. How did you guys do that? Like, do you have any kind of pointers on an individual basis? So Budapest guy or girl sitting here listening to you, what should they do a little bit differently than we did in the last 5 years in order to improve the entire ecosystem? What would be, if any of your hints or advice?
Yeah, I think we had this comfortable position. I agree with you. When I came over, this building, 12,000 square meters, was empty. So it was me, my colleague, and 4 security guys that were running around. There was not much back then. Since then, it's overcrowded. There are more than 1,000 people on the wait list who want to have an office here. I think this helped a lot.
You said it's 12,000 square meters, right? And it's already overcrowded, and there are 1,000 people waiting to get in. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. There's 2 sides. We have one event side and this side, so I think 6,000 each. So this co-working side is roughly 6,000.
So there's a big physical community, basically.
It's a big physical community, and I mean, this helped to concentrate. We have now 14 or 15 accelerator programs here. Some of our competitors are sitting around us. We have an incubator here, a venture fund sitting here, bigger corporates like Microsoft, many other like early stage initiatives where we help each other, talk to each other. But this was one part, I guess, that we had one central location where we could meet and concentrate people. But I think the secret here was that we were able to bring international people, founders from ecosystems like US. I had 4 companies here in the first year, from Los Angeles, from Florida, coming over and working here. So we exchange a lot of cultures. We had Italian founders, German founders, Ukrainian founders, US founders who were like very, very mixed, and we kept that pace. I'm a big believer that you can learn from different cultures and ecosystems a lot. Mm-hmm. And especially what I said earlier, that the ecosystem in Italy in 2019 was very different comparing to today. So we started bringing those founders together, and also like started creating initiatives. Luckily, also with our partners. So one of the partners here is the owner of the building, which is a former train repair station. They invested 110 million euro in that and build a community hub for founders, for entrepreneurs. And they help us beyond that. So we have these 2 foundations who have a huge network, invest in other venture capital funds. They invest in the infrastructure. They work with corporates as the bank does as well. So we are hosting different activities, corporate day with the bank, or they bring their clients. We have access to a lot of companies, to a lot of other exciting initiatives, research centers, universities. So really trying to like tap into the ecosystem, the local ecosystem, but also combining it with our international presence. And I had the luck as well to bring a lot of my mentors. One was here today, actually, from my Amsterdam program, for example. We had Monday someone here from my Berlin program, an investor coming over. So we always try to keep this local perspective, but also keep this eye on the international ecosystem and try to combine it with different perspectives, learnings, and not just like being in one city, one location, but we try to build truly global companies here. Because I think if you build today from Budapest or Torino, it doesn't really matter. You don't compete with companies in Szeged or in Napoli, but you compete with companies in those ecosystems like Berlin, Paris, London, and San Francisco, right? So you need to keep an eye on that. And
you said the words. You said the words: corporates, investors, research centers, universities, startup founders returning or coming from the US, from abroad. Obviously, some of the successful startuppers, but you haven't mentioned government. Is it by mistake, or it's not necessary? What should be the government's role in this development?
No, look, I think it's important, right? Like we have a very, very good relationship here with an initiative that is basically driven by the government, by the municipality. It's called the Torino City Lab. This is a platform where 80, 90 corporates are attached to it, AI centers, research centers, and we were able to start working together from day one, which I'm extremely happy about. And we have seen awesome opportunities coming around, like POCs. We had companies that tested their solutions on cameras in the city. We have 35 kilometers of autonomous roads in the city, so really real environment. We have drone testing environments. This is powered by the government. Very focused on the startup side, right? So I didn't mention it, but it's part of our success here as well. We will have a presentation next week for this current batch, and we have seen a lot of POCs. So they also enable a lot of opportunities for founders to test their solutions, to get access to corporates, get access to closed environments, right? Very, very important for us. I think Italy itself has a lot of initiatives from the government. There is a huge fund similar to High Ventures in Hungary, called GDP. They invest in funds, they invest in accelerators, they invest in startups directly. They help basically the ecosystem to lift off. So government is very important, and yeah, we are happy to have especially Torino City Lab around, which is powered by the city of Turin, and helping a lot of our companies to get unfair advantages in addressing and accessing markets.
Unfair advantages, we all like that. If it's on our side, now, very often when I talk to startups here, we have this discussion. What is the right size of investment? What is the fair evaluation of their company value? What's the ballpark number there? And I just want you to give us an idea when you think about a company going global or going international, and they start, maybe they already have a revenue generating model, and they are fundraising. What is the size of that seed fund that they should be looking for? What is the size of the dream, if I want to put it that way, the size of the dream that they should be looking for?
It depends. I think there is not one number you can say go and raise for. It depends on the company, right? So we had companies that raise $1 million here after the program, with companies like one that we invested together in from Budapest, invested $500,000 in the program. We have companies that raised $3.5 million after the program. We have companies that raised $9 million. It really depends where you are at and how much you want to dilute, how much you can afford to dilute actually, and how much you can afford to raise as well. But we spend a lot of time on fundraising and preparation, right? So I think capital is commodity today. I always say fundraising is a tool, it's not your end goal, because then you need to deliver and you raise for your milestones. So it really depends what you want to achieve with this amount that you're going to raise. If you already have good traction and clients, and you know that you raise to scale, to sell, and you can prove that metrics work, that you have kind of product market fit, you might be able to raise more. If you're still exploring and trying to figure out stuff, you might not raise that much to achieve your next milestone. It really depends, very broad question. But I always say, like, our companies work heavily with financial models. So a good model should simulate reality in Excel. And we're trying to identify a path for them, like what can they achieve, right? There's also part of this program in our third month, actually, where we prepare those companies for fundraising. It's not just financial modeling, but also pitch deck and how to speak with investors. We have a lot of VCs coming in to do office hours here, helping us straight. Like, you've been here last year, so you know what I'm talking about. We try to identify the minimum amount that helps them to get the next milestone, and then we let the market push up the valuation and push up the amount they are raising. So the most important part in fundraising is momentum. So if you need 1 million, don't start with 3 and then go down. You start with 500,000 and try to oversubscribe it, get momentum and kind of FOMO effect. We just have 2 companies that raised 3 million each. We'll publish them in the next couple of days. And they all started with, hey, we look at 1.5, 2 million. And investors started competing. And in the end, they raised 3 and pretty quickly and very successfully. And they could potentially raise even more. But it really depends. Company stage, market, geography, how good you are in fundraising as a founder. We have founders who raised a ton of capital, extremely high valuations with no revenues. On the other side, we had some founders who did 10, 15K MRR and still weren't able to raise quickly. So there are many, many factors. Probably we should do another podcast on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you have obviously you have a fairly constant look at the capital markets, because every year you crank out 10 deals, 10 companies, and so you see how successful or not successful they are at fundraising. And if I remember correctly, last year it was not the easiest year. Do you see that kind of VC winter passing, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think great companies will always raise. So it's the founder's job to find something that excites investors, tell a good story, and focus on the customers, right? Instead of focus on investors early on. If you don't have a great company, you will not raise. If you have a great business, you will find your investors, or they will find you, right? And usually, once you're in that position, they will try to get into the company. We had, especially those examples that I just mentioned, many investors were not able to get allocation in those rounds. They were heavily oversubscribed, but the founders were really, really good in creating this FOMO and bringing a lot of investors together, where they said, hey, we can now pick investors who should be part of it. So yes, there was statistically a VC winter. I wouldn't call it a VC winter, because if you look at the numbers, we had a very high peak during COVID. I had companies where investors from New York invested into a company seed stage in Germany or UK without meeting the founders. And there was a lot of capital. The market went crazy. So people were pouring money into the market, and we know what happened afterwards. But still, like, looking back,
it was overheating at the time.
It was overheating, and if founders want to raise, if they need to raise, they will raise if they have a venture business. We have seen here like almost 90% of success rate for those companies who raised, and we speak here about angel investments to up to 17.4 million Series A rounds. But I have never seen a winter, and there was always capital available in the last 5 years, and it was potentially like kind of let's say investors were more cautious after this peak to pick companies. They started doing due diligence again versus like, hey, we have one call and take my 500K. It wasn't healthy, right? It wasn't healthy. And there were so many companies where I always had question marks. Hey, why did they raise? Like, it doesn't really make sense. So they went out of business. Those funds that invested, they also very often went out of business because there was a high competition for like whoever does something with blockchain in that year. Was let's do it. Then was AI. Let's put money in. So I think that the capital is abundant again. We have seen billions coming in since January into the European market. Today there were just a couple of fund announcements again from 20 VC. Here one from Bento, 75 million for early stage founders. So there's always capital available, but I think investors are slightly looking different companies than they did in 2021, and just like kind of looking at the founder like, here's my cash, take it, and you go nowhere, right? So they go through diligence, they go and do customer conversations and try to build their thesis and put money into something that they are excited about.
Yeah, it's always good to hear, that internationally the landscape is very rational, and obviously, not counting these extremities when the market is overheating. Typically, good founders find capital. That's a good sort of final word. Now, I don't want to monopolize very much, the conversation, and we actually were asking participants to ask questions freely if they want to. And the first one was who made a comment is István Südi. We both know him. He's happy to see us, and obviously Slavo, you're one of your founders in the program now. Our Slovakian man of mystery, very funny guy. And there is a gentleman called Adam Black. He's also asking a question. I think that he wasn't really here probably for the first part of the conversation. His question is, you see on the screen. Thank you, Camilla, for posting it. Are you focused on climate tech?
Not specifically. It's one of our verticals. One of the companies that currently actually mentioned now, they are in ESG sustainability. So we have a bunch of companies in that industry, but it's not our primary focus. Transformative world means for us anything that implies smart mobility, cities of the future, which also climate tech, sustainability industries that could be part of this top term climate tech, but not our primary focus only.
Okay. I had one question that I received privately through my email, and the question was focusing again on funding. Whether obviously in your program you have set limits of funding, 20K that can be used during the program, and then if I'm correct, 100,000 euros as a convertible loan. And the question is, does Techstars actually become an investor after the program sometimes? If you can actually raise even more money, maybe participating with 1 million as Techstars investment, and then that would attract additional funds.
Yeah. So first of all, we invest 20K for 6% common equity. All right. This is what we call, let's say, our participation price. So each company that goes through Techstars gives up 6% of equity for being part of it, for our support, for the work, and Techstars always for life, not just for the 3 months, but also beyond. We do a lot. Happy to elaborate on that, like what it means to be part of this network. Those companies get a stipend of 20K, so they can use it for housing, for traveling, whatever they want. And each company has an optional convertible note of 100,000 USD. So we offered that note to all companies, but they have the right to say, yes, we want to take it or not. Usually this is kept at 3 to 5 million USD cap. But all companies that are accepted have this option to take it. The question about our follow-on funding, yes, we can invest again in multiple rounds. So we usually invest in pro rata. Those are tickets between 150 and 300,000 after the program.
All right, reasonable. All right. Okay, I think that we can be all very happy that you gave us some of your time during Mentor Madness Week, and when companies are really busy, trying to find their product market fit or their product value proposition. And I'm really happy that now we have actually this conversation about Hungarian companies, right? So let's mention how many Hungarian companies you had in your program in the last 6 years.
Three.
You had Voltium, right? It's an energy company. You have OUVC.
Exactly, our common investment from last year, and this year I have a company called Exam. They build
and Exam is in your current batch. So Hungarians can make it to your accelerator.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of Eastern European companies. Based on my roots, actually, as well. I love founders from that region. This is where I think we can, type of founder, we can add a lot of value by teaching them how to sell, be more ambitious, and think global. Slavomir is one of them. He came from Bratislava. We have 3 this year: Budapest, Bratislava, and Montenegro. And yeah, we had 3 companies from Budapest. That I'm pretty often in the city as well. I think great ecosystem, great city to build something, amazing talent when it comes to tech. And you also have great amount of companies that made it, Sion or Bitrise or many others. So you have a lot of great initiative. First Monday by Chongor, so people meet there, exchange and help each other to build stuff. But if you look at the other countries, very similar picture, right? So I think you can build great startups from everywhere. Just like if you want to go and think global, getting this perceptive potentially from people who come from other markets and who have access to the US, who have access to more mature like Germany, UK in the first years, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But again, it doesn't matter where you are. You can make it from any country, and we invested here in founders or companies from more than 20 countries, and I think even more than 30 nationalities. So yeah, absolutely.
It's a global accelerator in Turin. All right, so one last question. When do you swing by Budapest again?
I will probably come back for a board meeting for Volteum, I guess end of May, early June.
So maybe, the first week of June, if you're here, then we can meet you at the first Monday, maybe?
Luckily, yes.
Luckily, yes. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for being such a good sport, being the first guest on this series. You mentioned that you're curious who will be the second on the series. It's going to be Chris Brown, who is the manager of the Inception program, the special startup Inception program at NVIDIA.
Awesome.
The $1 trillion company. So he also has some ties to Hungary, and he's going to explain it to us what those are about a month from now. So obviously, I will invite you for that call, and
happy to join.
To see you then. All right, thank you, Martin, and to all listeners. I hope you enjoyed it. We are going to post it on social media and obviously on our website. So see you later. Swing by OUVC if you have some time. Thank you. Bye now.
Thanks for the invitation, Emre. Bye-bye.
Bye.